Hey everybody, for those that don't know me, I'm Andrew. I'm one of the EOs for the Loaded Dice podcast, and we're currently running the Siege of Asphodel Bridge campaign at the Combat Company in Mortdale. Now, we've been getting a few questions over the last couple of weeks since we released the tickets for Chapter 3, which is happening on the 3rd of October, so a little bit over a week away. And that is because the 30k component format for the third chapter is a Centurion Zone Mortalis one. So up until now, we've been playing Age of Darkness frontline games. 2,500 points, standard force orgs, all that sort of stuff. What we're doing from Chapter 3 and probably Chapter 4 as well is we're going to be decreasing the size of the games. So we're going down to 1,500 and we're playing Centurion style and Zone Mortalis style. And that means we're going to be able to get at least three games in. But it's also from a narrative point of view, it's getting to the point on Charon 2 where all this action is taking place, that the big engagements, the Space Marine commands on both sides, the traitors and the loyalists, have decided that potentially smaller forces are going to be able to do surgical strikes and carry out very much pinpoint objective strikes on their enemies, as opposed to big full-on confrontations that don't really seem to be sort of netting either side any sort of victory. So, an example that might be that the traders decide that one of the ways to knock the loyalists around a little bit is potentially go after their high command and all their top praetors, and so they use a smaller force that can move a little bit easier, a little bit undetected, and launch some sort of almost suicide mission against them. And in regards to the loyalists, potentially they want to go and take a territory that's a special territory, a refinery or an airfield that's causing them some problems, and they're going to use some sort of Raven Guard infiltration force to go and achieve that sort of thing. So that's what the Centurion games and the Zone Mortalis games are about. So obviously Zone Mortalis is, if you've never played it, is sort of the inside the corridors and the rooms. It was originally developed for fighting on space stations and ship-to-ship combat early on in the Heresy and in 40k. What it's going to be using to represent here is sort of fighting through installations, hive cities, refineries, and things like that, as opposed to space stations and ships. So there's a little bit of difference with the rules as well, and the catastrophic damage and those sort of things. But we've got a couple of Zone Mortalis boards coming. The Loaded Dice podcast, we've got a big Forge World board that we've had for quite a few years. Most people probably already played on it a few times. So we're going to be bringing that one out, and a couple of the other players have agreed to bring their Zone Mortalis boards as well, which is really awesome. And what we're sort of expecting from players is that you bring a list that works across both. Now, most people have probably played Centurion in one format or another. If you haven't, a really quick sort of history lesson on Centurion is it is a fan-made format for 30k. It's originally the brainchild of Tim and Michael at the I Horus podcast. And the idea behind it was really to have infantry engagements, because a lot of 30k games, frontline games, it's all about tanks and big vehicles and things like that. And there's a lot of units that don't see a lot of play, because if you've got a whole bunch of Medusas and Typhons and things like that rolling around, you don't bring out some of these units that just get deleted super easy. So Centurion is all about sort of big infantry engagements. You can have your dreadnoughts, you can have a couple of smaller vehicles like land speeders are a big thing, but it's really staying away from the big tank squadrons and the super heavies and stuff like that. It's a really cool format. If you've never played it before, it's very, very enjoyable. They are much faster, much bloodier games. And you get to have some really cool stuff going on. So what we've decided for Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 is that we're going to be using the Mournival Event Centurion rules, because being a fan-made set, there's a lot of different kind of versions of Centurion. Like we've had one ourselves from a million years ago that we really enjoyed, but the Mournful Events one is really the best I've seen in a long time. So and it's very well displayed inside of their Mournful Events rulebook, which is free to download. We've put it in the players pack, and I'm just going to run through it here now. So this is about creating your army using the Mournful Events Centurion. So basically what happens with this one is you have allowed units and you have restricted units. And to give you an idea, we're playing at 1,500 points, so keep that in mind. So a minimum of one unrestricted unit is required for each 500 points of your army or part thereof, including both primary and allied detachments. A maximum of one restricted unit is available for each full 500 points of the force. For example, in a game of 1,500 points, up to 3 restricted choices in total may be selected. Apothecaries are counted as part of the unit they join, and the Warlord does not count against the number of restricted units, but does count towards unrestricted choices. Units with a mix of infantry and other models count as the unit type of the non-infantry model. So if you've got something that's mixing monstrous creatures and infantry, so things like Praevians and stuff, there's not a lot of them, but if it's there, that's what covers that off. So the following units are unrestricted. So 0+ infantry units, including all types of infantry. So don't forget, you're going to need at least 3 of these in 1,500 points that we're playing in Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. Okay, so then we've got a whole bunch of, we've got 3 other lists. So the first list is units that are restricted in games of under 2,000 points. Then we have a list that is units that are restricted to games of at least 2,000 points. So these won't be available for Chapter 3 or Chapter 4 at this point. And then the last list are units that are never available in Mournful Centurion. So the restricted units, so don't forget you'll be able to take sort of 3 of these in 1,500 points, is 0-1 artillery unit. So think quad mortars and stuff like that. 0-1 jet bike units, 0-1 bike units, 0-1 attack bike units, 0-1 units containing monstrous creatures, 0-1 unit of demon brutes, 0-1 units of skimmers, 0+ units of beasts, 0+ units of cavalry, and 0+ walker units. So obviously when they're 0-1, so an example, that's the artillery, right? At 1,500 points, you can take 3 restricted, but you can't take 3 artillery. You can only ever take 0-1 artillery in a Centurion list. However, there's a lot of 0+ ones here, so beasts, cavalry, and walkers, so things like dreadnoughts. Cavalry would be rough riders, and beasts, I think, are realistically demon stuff that I can sort of think of off the top of my head. So you could take 3 walker units at 1,500 points as your restricted choices. So the things that you're not going to be able to take in your lists for Chapter 3, unique characters. So obviously in our events we don't allow unique characters anyway, so that's fine. Legion of Starters, Praetors. So Praetors, by their own rules, can only be taken at 2,000 points or more. Now, the only thing here is that we have said you have to have a campaign character. So potentially we're going to be okay with Praetors at 1,500 points if they are your campaign character. But feel free just to check in. Leviathan Siege Dreadnoughts, you can't have. Mechanicum Arc Magos, I don't think anybody's running Mechanicum as their campaign force, so that's okay. Thanatar units of any type. Custode Shield Captains and Tribunes. Hater and Guard units, and Telamon Dreadnoughts. So they're all restricted to 2,000 points plus in Centurion. Potentially for Chapter 4, we might go up to 2,000 points Centurion, but we're just going to wait and see. And then the following units are always restricted in Centurion. Primarchs, unless the event organisers allow it, obviously. Tanks, flyers, including flying monstrous creatures. Drop pods, super heavy vehicles, demon behemoths, gargantuan creatures, and fortifications. Now, fortifications, if you have a planetary defense point or something that allows you to have a fortification, that gets around this. So you could potentially have a bunker in a Centurion game when playing in our events. So to give you a bit of an idea, you'd need to still have your campaign character as a HQ. You would still be using the Force Org charts and things like that. So because of playing Zone Mortalis, you've got access to the Attacker Defender chart for Zone Mortalis. If you choose to use that as a Force Org chart, you must bring in an Attacker and a Defender list based off that Force Org. And then depending on whether you're the person put up by your War Master or you're the person who's defending, that will tell you which list you need to use. You can also use the Zone Mortalis combatant list with that one. So guys, hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea. As I said, you can pick up these rules either on the Mourneville Events Facebook page, they're in our players pack, and I'm also going to post them again in both of the war rooms. The other thing that you need to be looking at the moment is talking to your War Masters and working out what territories you'd like to fortify or garrison between now and the event. And I also need to know which territory is going to be your High Command territory. And I'm going to put up a post about High Commands probably later on this weekend to give you an idea. But it's basically, if anybody's ever played map-based, it's kind of your capital. It'll give you some benefits, but obviously there's massive detriments if you ever lose it as well. So those things are going to start coming to the fore with the narrative side of everything. And the last thing is, if you haven't already purchased your ticket, please jump online and grab it from the Combat Company under their events tab. It's super important that you guys buy them in advance just because of COVID and getting everybody's details, and it just makes everything faster on the day. So please jump on. You can pay for it, PayPal, all that sort of fun stuff. If you can't make the events, we should be able to leave the ticket on your account. You can use it at a later date or, as something else for store credit. So guys, hopefully this has made a little bit of sense and sort of demystified Centurion if you've never played it before. We're super keen to sort of see what goes on at the next event. If you've got any questions, please reach out to myself, your War Masters, or one of the other EOs in the war room, and we should be able to give you a bit of a hand. More than happy to check lists and all that sort of stuff. So guys, thanks for listening. We'll see you at Chapter 3 on the 3rd of October.